Hello, bruvs. We're back with The 17 Mile Horror by Dick Gessler. Dick Gessler. Chapter 14. Bob Klein was a classmate of Pete Worthington's at Salem High. I can't even read. Chapter 14. Bob Klein was a classmate of Pete Worthington's at Salem High in Plymouth. They were both on the football team, and in their senior year, both ran for the office of class president. They were both popular with the kids in their class, but Bob was considered a fox by most of the girls, and Pete became known as a stick in the mud because of his sister's strict upbringing. It was only natural that Bob won the election hands down. He showed an interest in writing and obtained a job on the school paper. He went by the byline Super Sleuth and wrote stories of the various gripes that the students had. No one knew his identity, and because of this, and also because he was liked by both students and faculty, he was able to gain access to the office of the principal of the school and many times was invited to attend faculty meetings where school policy was discussed behind closed doors. The more he got wrapped up in trying to solve the students' problems, the more vicious he became in his attacks on the establishment. He would take the minutest complaint of a student and blow it way out of proportion just to have a basis for attacking a certain administrator. It wasn't long before the editor of the student paper was approached by the principal and asked to have whomever was writing these scandalous stories to stop. When the editor of the paper approached Bob and explained that she was on the hot seat because of him, he toned down his stories only because he was getting it on with the editor and he didn't want to ruin a good thing. After graduation, he decided that he wanted to further his writing career and enrolled as a journalism major at Eastern Michigan University. What's up, bruv? Pete had long ago decided that he wanted to be an undertaker, so he enrolled at the Mortuary Institute in New Jersey, one of the finest in the country. Emery Bowling, will you please say hi to my brother? His name is Drew. Drew, you're going to have to pay me $16 million to get a hi. I'm reading 17 Mile Horror. Bye, Drew. When Bob Klein graduated from Eastern, he returned to his hometown of Plymouth. He obtained a job as a cub reporter on the Town Crier, a small local newspaper in town. After a year of doing obituaries and covering local events such as the local arts and crafts show, he felt that he had enough experience to get on with the larger paper. He filled out applications at the Detroit News and the Detroit Free Press. I'm a mind reader. About a week after he had filled out the application, he received a call to come down for an interview with the chief editor of the news. This is it, he had told himself, a shot at the big time. He arrived at the main office on Lafayette Street promptly at 9. The secretary seated in front of a door marked Editor-in-Chief told him to go right in. He was expected. The editor was on the phone and motioned with a hand holding a cigarette to take a seat. He sat down in a large mahogany leather chair, nervously waiting for the editor to finish his conversation. When he finally hung up the phone, he picked up a manila envelope on the desk in front of him. He removed some papers and started skimming over them. After what seemed an eternity, he finally laid the papers down and looked at Bob. Mr. Klein, you certainly have a lot of pent-up hate in you. What do you mean, sir? Bob was shocked by the statement the editor had made. I mean, young man, that you come across as so many other young people do when they come out of college. You see so many things wrong with our society. You see graft and corruption in local and government offices. You mention money wasted foolishly by our government. You attack the military system. In your eyes, all politicians are crooks. You ask for help for the poor of this country instead of sending all of our dollars overseas. In your zeal to correct all of these problems, you do as so many other young journalists do. You attack the people in high office, the very people that our citizens put there. There is one thing that you do not do. In every article that you have given me, there is not one article that offers a better solution to the problem. You young people are quick to criticize. You want to change the establishment. You want to make life easier for all, but how are you going to do it? Mr. Klein, there is a great deal wrong with our country. We have graft and corruption in high places. We have a judicial system that gives more rights to the accused than it does the victim. We have excessive spending in Congress. The poor are still poor, even though we are the richest country in the world. All of these things must be corrected before we have the utopia that you want. Yet we are still a country that is run by the people. You know the saying, by the people, for the people. That still holds true in this country, no matter what you say. Whenever this country is threatened, either from without or from within, whenever this occurs, the people of this country band together to put a stop to whatever aggression is present. And you know what, Mr. Klein? When that happens, changes are made. Heads roll, new policies are formed, and the situation rights itself. It takes a lot to make us angry, but look out when we do. The few radical steps that you wish to be taken to help solve the country's problems are not the answer. This country has always taken steps to solve a certain problem in moderation. Senator Goldwater is an example in point. He wanted to solve this country's problems by coming on strong. His way was to show the world our military strength. You saw what happened. The people let their representatives in Congress know that this is not the way they wanted their country to be run. The old saying, I'm afraid, still holds true. What is that, sir? Bob finally managed to get a word in edgewise. Walk quietly, but carry a big stick. Bob looked at his hands. He certainly couldn't quarrel with that statement. Bob, the editor went on, I'm sorry that I came on so strong. It's just that I get these kinds of resumes every day, and after a while they get to me. He looked through the papers that he had in front of him, then looked up at Bob. You know, Bob, I like your I like your aggressive style. You're going to be a good journalist. You have to remember one thing, though. Don't try and solve all the world's problems in 1 month, or 1 year for that matter. Remember one thing. Whenever you do a story, before you start attacking, get the facts straight. That is the one problem with our aspiring journalists today. They are so anxious to present a story that they overlook the most important ingredient in good journalism, truth. If you see a wrong being done and if you have the facts to back up your story, then by all means write the story. You will not only be doing a service to your fellow citizens, but also to your community. Tell you what I'm going to do, Bob. I don't think that you are ready yet for a paper the caliber of the News. I have a friend, though, who is the chief editor of the Eccentric newspapers. It's one of the largest suburban newspaper chains in the state. They have 10 local suburban editions out on the street twice a week. I had lunch with the editor, Jim Talbert, the other day. He was telling me that he could use a few more cub reporters on the staff of the Plymouth Observer. He asked me to keep my eyes open for some likely prospects. What do you say, Bob? Would you be interested? Bob couldn't believe what he was hearing. After listening to the editor finding fault with just about everything he had written, and now to be offered a job on the Observer, he was dumbfounded. Well, what do you want? What do you say, young man? Why, yes, sir. I'd be very interested. He finally managed to say, after the editor made a phone call and gave Jim Talbert the name of the new reporter and an appointment for an interview, purely routine, Bob left the office floating on cloud 9. After the editor made a phone call, oh, there it is. Bob started on the Observer doing what every new reporter was expected to do. He was assigned to the local community desk. The job meant that he had to cover all the local events that occurred in Plymouth. This meant attending flower shows, sewing circle meetings, the annual fall festival planning meetings, and the city council monthly meeting. He was also in charge of writing about the many prominent citizens of Plymouth. It was his responsibility to gather all the social news. Who was entertaining whom, at whose home, what was being served, etc. It wasn't surprising when, after only 6 months, he tired of this mundane reporting, but unlike before, he remembered what the editor of the news told him. Don't try and solve the world's problems in a month or a year. To try and keep an interest in his dull job, he found himself more and more stopping by the Plymouth police station. There was always something going on, and although he knew that he couldn't write about it, he still liked the excitement that he found there. When word got out about the first disappearance in Hines Park, he sensed a big story in the making. Instead of talking to his editor, he called the editor of the news. He asked him to do him a favor. He explained that he would like to be assigned the story. He asked him if he would talk to Mr. Talbert and give him a chance to write about the abduction. A week after his phone call, Mr. Talbert called him into his office. I just got quite a recommendation concerning you. It seems that the editor of the Detroit News, no less, has asked me to put you on this Hines Park thing. Seems that you think it might be a big story. Is that true? Yes, sir, Bob had said. I think this thing, from all that I've heard, might be the work of some psycho. I think he's not going to stop with one. I believe that there will be more. Tell you what, Bob, you've done a good job for us so far covering the local scene. I'm going to give you a chance on this thing. I don't know if I agree with you or not about this psycho thing, but nevertheless, if you can find a story in this thing, then go ahead. After Bob thanked his editor, he went to work getting all of the background on the abduction. He practically lived at the police station. He pestered the dispatcher's desk, asking if anything new had come in on the case. He talked with the officers from the Livonia Police Department, where the abduction occurred. He was told that there were no clues. The girl had just vanished. He kept on the case for a month, squeezing every bit he could out of the story. He was just about to consider the story a dead issue when the second abduction took place. He had been right. It was the work of some fruitcake. The MO was the same as the first abduction. Nobody was found. No body was found. When the readers read that he was writing about the girls in Hines Park, he started getting phone calls from irate citizens asking what was being done to protect their children. He started writing articles asking the city council what steps they were taking to put an end to these mysterious abductions. He wrote that the good townspeople of Plymouth were afraid to use the park that their tax dollars paid for. He asked that more police be assigned park duty to try to put an end to this horror. When no further clues appeared, he had to come up with some follow-up story to keep the public's interest alive. Also, he wanted to remain on the story, so for his own selfish reasons, he wrote articles that attacked Chief Guthrie. He knew in his own mind that Sam was doing all that he could do to solve the case. He felt guilty about putting the blame on him just for the sake of keeping the story alive, but he was determined to find the abductor, and selfishness overcame his good judgment, and he continued his scathing articles. After the latest abduction, the fifth since March, he decided he must get together with Sam and compare notes, so to speak. He had compiled quite a file on the abductions. He had interviewed the parents of each girl, talked to all of the officers who had been involved in the 5 cases, visited the scenes of all the abductions, and had a list of clues that even Sam didn't know anyone but he possessed. He had very definite ideas of what type killer they were confronted with. He definitely believed that the girls were being killed, even though no bodies had been found. Unknown to anyone, he had a long talk with Dr. Schwartz, the local psychiatrist in town. From him, he was able to find out what kind of mind it took to perform such a crime. Now he had to talk to Sam and try and get him to tell him if he had any suspects in mind. He had formed the opinion that someone local was doing the killings. His thought was that the killer knew the area very well. The fact that he disappeared so fast after the abductions told him that he must live close by. These were his own opinions, of course, and he wanted to find out if Sam agreed with any of his theories. He had learned from some of the cops in the case that Sam was keeping late hours at his office in an effort to crack the case. Since he had no luck in trying to see him in the daytime, he decided to pay him a late visit tonight. Come in, Sam said as he heard the knock on his office door. That ain't the page. Sorry to bother you at this late hour, Chief, but it seems that you're not available in the daytime. Sam was furious. He was unable to hide his feelings. His pipe was cherry red, and he had the room filled with smoke. He had a dislike for this brash young man, to put it mildly. If the truth were known, he hated his guts. Sam knew, however, that he had to be careful what he said. This guy would print whatever suited him, so the less said, the better. Take a seat, Mr. Klein. Sam motioned to the chair in front of his desk. What brings you out at this hour of the night? It's this Hines Park thing, Chief. Needless to say, you know how I feel about the city's lack of effort in getting this thing resolved. I realize that you are putting in extra hours on your own, but one man alone is not the answer. Sam tried to control his temper. I suppose that you're going to tell me that you have a better solution to the problem. Chief, I know that you must hate my guts for the articles that I have had to write about this thing. I want you to know that I'm not attacking you specifically. I had to write what I did in the hope that our city fathers would get off their duffs and provide you with some more help on this case. Mr. Klein, Sam tapped the ashes out of his pipe and refilled the bowl. For your information and for the information of our fair citizens, I have been given all of the money I need to solve these killings. You said killings. Bob moved forward in his chair. Do you know for certain that these are killings? The anger in Sam tried to come to the surface again, but he managed to hold it in. My dear Mr. Klein, I'm quite sure that you have almost as much information on this case as I have. Don't you think that our killer, or abductor if you wish, is killing these girls? What else could he be doing with them? That's a question that I thought you might give me an answer to. Listen, Klein. Sam stopped trying to act polite before this young upstart. Most of what I have is pure conjecture. I have only a handful of evidence that I could give to the DA to try and put this guy away when I catch him. So therefore, I have to assume what he is doing with the girls. The most logical, in my opinion, is to kill the girls. Answer me this one, Chief. Why? Why is he snatching these girls from the park? What could his motive possibly be? Klein, we're dealing with a psycho. He doesn't have to have a motive. Something in his demented mind is telling him to kill girls. What the reason is, we won't know until we catch him. Chief, in going over the reports on the case, I have come up with a lot of similarities. The girl's hair, the duration between each abduction, the spots that he picks to snatch the girls. I also know that he is driving a black LTD. I'm sure that you have the same facts. Why don't you try and lay a trap for him? For your information and your readers, I have laid a trap for him. A week ago, I had a strong hunch that he was going to get another girl. I had the park swarming with my men. He was there all right, and he got another girl right from under our noses. I can't blame my men. They did everything possible to catch him, but somehow, call it luck on his part, or call it what you like, he got away. Chief, why didn't your man, who was on the scene just moments before he got the girl, clear the area? He saw that the girl was lying back by the bushes all by herself. Klein, listen to me. Sam could hold back no longer. What in the hell do you think my men are, mind readers? How in the hell did my man know that our creep was waiting in the bushes to snatch the girl? No way could he have known. Oh, sure, it's easy to say clear the park, but don't you forget one thing. I haven't got the authority to do that. It's up to the sheriff. He has jurisdiction over that park, not me. Until I get the go-ahead from him, the park stays open. All right, Chief, let's drop that issue. With all the facts you have, and I know that you don't have too many, you still must have someone in mind that we can call a suspect. Would you mind filling me in on who you think could have possibly done it? Now, what are you trying to do? Put the blame on some patsy just for the sake of solving the murders? No, I don't have any suspect in mind. The facts that we have lead us nowhere. It's still a dead end. My only hope is to catch him at his job. Then we'll have the answer to the whole goddamn riddle. And not before. You have another plan to trap him, then. Is that it? You son of a bitch, Sam thought, trying to get me to tell him what he had in mind just so he could get an exclusive on the story. Not on your life, sonny boy. No, not another plan. I just intend to use all the men that I have at my disposal and have them in the park every weekend until we catch him. All right, Chief. You don't mind if I print that, do you? Go ahead, Klein. Print what you want. I'm doing all that I can to catch this nut. That's all I can do. If you want to write into it whatever comes to your mind, well, I guess that's your prerogative. Just remember one thing, Klein. When you start writing shit in your paper that's not true just for the sake of a story, you're going to get your ass in a bind that you won't be able to get it out of. So let me warn you, if you write a bunch of crap about me that's not true, I'll have you up for the biggest slander suit you have ever seen. Now get your ass out of my office. I've got work to do. When Bob left his office, Sam slumped in his chair. He looked at his hands. They were actually trembling. This was not like him. He had been through a lot worse cases than this, where the pressure was being constantly put on him, and he had never cracked. Now look at him. Was it getting to him? Was he getting too old for this job? His wife was right. This is it. When he finished this one, he was going to hang it up. Boy, did he need a stiff drink. Sam pulled out of the city parking lot and made a left onto Main. He drove south 1 block to Kellogg Park. At Ann Arbor Trail, he made another left and stopped in the no parking zone in front of the Box Bar. The Box Bar was the local gathering place for the gentry of Plymouth. It was a small looking establishment when you looked at it from the front, but this look was deceiving. The name Box suited the place because it was built like a shoebox, narrow and long. The specialty of the house was a ground round and onion rings. They also served an assortment of sandwiches that the local people seemed to enjoy. The bar was typical of any bar in a small town. It was a quiet place where one could meet one's friends and neighbors and not have to worry about getting into a fight or meeting unsavory characters, which was always the problem in a city bar. Hi, Georgie, Sam addressed the young waitress as he entered the dimly lit bar. How about a booth in the back? I need some privacy. Sure thing, Sam. Follow me. As Sam followed the shapely waitress, at least a half dozen people greeted him or waved their arms in salutation. He acknowledged each one but didn't stop to pass the time of day. He was in no mood to talk to anyone. He had to be by himself so that he could collect his thoughts. How's this, Sam? The girl said as she showed him to a booth at the far end of the large room. This'll be fine, Georgie. Give me a double scotch on the rocks, would you please? Sure thing, Sam. I'll be right back. When the girl brought him his drink, he looked at it for a moment, then picked it up and took a couple of long swallows. The alcohol had a momentary burning effect on his throat as it went down. Ah, he said out loud, I needed that, because he had not eaten in a long time. The alcohol had an immediate effect on his system. He started to relax and he could feel the tension leaving his body. His mind went back to the conversation he had just had with Bob Klein. That asshole was getting too nosy. It wouldn't be long before he put all the pieces together like he had and come up with Pete as the killer. He had to catch Pete before anyone else did, yet he could do nothing until Carl gave him the word that the van was in the park. Sam now knew that this indicated that Pete was on the prowl for his next victim. If Bob Klein knew that it was Pete who was committing all of these heinous, and he wrote heinous crimes, he would have the story splashed all over the front pages of the paper. Well, there was nothing that he could do but wait. He had once contemplated the idea of confronting Pete with the truth. He put this thought out of his mind because he felt sure that Pete, in the unstable condition that he was in, would deny Sam's accusations. If he was under the influence of the evil personality that had taken over his subconscious, or he would not have any idea of what was going on. His only chance was to catch Pete at the scene of the next abduction. That is where he had need for Tony and Nancy. Sam had another double scotch on the rocks, then decided that he had better get on home. Tomorrow was going to be another busy day, and he sure could use a few hours of shut-eye. Shut-eye. Chapter 15. Chapter 15. Come on. Bob Klein had been called into the editor's office the day after he had paid Sam a visit. There were no new clues to who the Edward Hines killer was. So the editor asked him if he would mind doing a story on the historic homes of Plymouth for the upcoming fall festival. Oh no. Bob didn't like the idea, but was forced to agree with his editor that the Hines Park matter would have to be given back page coverage until something new came up. Hi, Barb. Bob greeted the custodian of the Plymouth Historical Museum. I see that they still have you going over the old manuscripts. Why, Bob Klein? What brings you to our noble establishment? She said, the large leather-bound manuscript down on the desk when she saw who her visitor was. I've been assigned to cover the fall festival, and I need some background on our famous historic homes. Well, I must say you've come to the right place. If you'll follow me down to the archives, I think I can give you enough information to write 2 stories. Bob followed the elderly custodian down the stairs through the old cobblestone streets to the huge vault where the old documents were kept. There certainly is a lot of interest these days in our fine old homes. This is the second request I've had in the past week. You mean someone else was here asking about our historical homes? Why, yes, Sam Guthrie was here a few days ago asking about the Worthington mansion. God damn it. Bob looked at the custodian, at first not believing what he had heard. This could be the break he was looking for. If Sam had asked to see the papers on the Worthington mansion, then there must be a connection between the mansion and the murders. Bob, Barbara asked when she noticed Bob staring at her. Is there something wrong? No, Barb, nothing at all. Let's just say that I'm glad that I stopped by. I don't think that I'll need those papers after all. But what about the fall? I can't even talk. But what about the fall festival? Who's going to write the article? Barbara asked, dumbfounded. Barb, I'll send over one of our best cub reporters tomorrow. Thanks again, Barb. He walked out of the museum, leaving an astonished Barbara speechless. Bob walked the 2 blocks to Walter's restaurant and went in the rear door. He decided that he had better get a bit to eat. It was almost noon, and he felt a little hungry. It would also give him a chance to collect his thoughts and decide what his next move would be. He took a seat in a booth at the rear of the restaurant. Hi, Bob. What can I get you? Nancy asked as she brought a menu and a glass of water to the table. Oh, I'll have the burger basket. Give me hash browns instead of fries and a coffee. How are things going at the Observer? Nancy asked as she wrote down his order. Oh, I'm busy with that Hines Park thing. Maybe you've read some of my articles. Oh, yeah, I think I have read about those killings. Was that you? Yeah, I'm afraid so. Did you enjoy the stories? Well, if you don't mind me saying so, didn't you get on Sam pretty heavy? So it's Sam, is it? I didn't know you and him were friends. Well, I thought everyone knew. He stops in here for breakfast every morning. If I didn't see Pete and Sam in here every day, I'd think something was wrong. You said Pete. Bob caught the name immediately. You don't mean Pete Worthington, do you? Why, yes. Nancy looked puzzled. Do you know him? Well, not since high school. We graduated together. After that, we each went our separate ways. You mentioned something about Pete and Sam, or Chief Guthrie having breakfast together. How long has this been going on? Why, they've had breakfast here for as long as I've worked here. I guess about 2 years or more. Is there something wrong with that? Oh, no, I just find it interesting, that's all. Nancy gave Bob a quizzical look as she walked to the kitchen to turn in her order. After Nancy brought his coffee, he sat looking at the cup, trying to comprehend the significance of what he had just learned from Barbara at the museum. If Sam was interested in the Worthington mansion, then there must be a connection between the mansion and the killings. What could the connection be? Did Sam suspect Pete? The thought of Pete being the killer was almost incomprehensible. Shy, bashful Pete Worthington, the guy he remembered from high school, who wouldn't even think of dating a girl. Is this the maniac that Sam thinks is his killer? The idea was almost unbelievable, yet the very reason that Sam inquired about the mansion had to tie in with someone in that house being a suspect. He recalled the conversation that he had with Dr. Schwartz. The good doctor had told him that it was possible that something drastic occurred to the killer to make him act the way he was. The doctor also mentioned that even a shy, unobtrusive person could turn into a vicious killer if a sudden shock had triggered his brain. Yes, he thought, I guess it is possible. Yes, he thought, I guess it is possible that Pete could be a suspect. What he had to find out now was what had happened to Pete in the past few months to cause this change in his personality. My, you're deep in thought, Nancy brought his order, and noticed that he seemed to have his mind on something far removed from the coffee cup that he was staring at. Oh, Nancy, I'm sorry, I just can't get this Heinz Park thing out of my head. Whenever I get an idea, I try to put the pieces of the puzzle together to see if they match. I sure hope that they catch that creep before some other girl gets it. Nancy had a worried look on her face as she stood by the table. Hey, don't look so worried. You'd think that you were going to be the next victim. Oh, I'm not worried about that. I don't go to the park. I just feel sorry for all those poor girls that this jerk has killed. Bob had taken a bite out of his hamburger when he heard Nancy mention that the girls were killed. His investigative mind immediately came to attention. Why would she say that the girls were killed? There had been no bodies found, and he never once mentioned in his articles that the girls were indeed murdered. Did she just assume that the girls were dead, or did she know something? She had told him that Sam and Pete came in for breakfast practically every morning. Did Sam let something slip and end up confiding in her? He had to find out. Nancy, he looked up from his hamburger, could I talk to you for a minute? Nancy looked at Bob, noting how serious he sounded. Let me get those people in that back booth, then I'll have a few minutes to talk to you. Bob dug into his hash browns and hamburger. He had just finished the last of the potatoes and was washing them down with a swallow of coffee when Nancy returned to his table. Okay, Bob, I can spare you a few minutes now. What's so important? Nancy, I don't know exactly how to put this, and I don't want to betray a confidence, but when Sam comes in here to have breakfast, does he ever mention the Heinz Park case? When Bob mentioned Sam in connection with the killings, she immediately came on the defensive. Sam had told her that there was a reporter on the Observer who was giving him a bad time. This must be who he meant. She knew that Sam wanted to stop Pete before anyone else found out his identity. She was now involved in the case and agreed with Sam. She wasn't about to tell this hotshot reporter anything she didn't have to. Yes, he does, Nancy answered his question cautiously. I don't suppose that he has any suspects in mind, does he? I never heard him mention anyone. Nancy started to become flustered. She was never any good at lying. You seem to hesitate. Does that mean that he has someone in mind? Nancy started to lose her composure. I don't know. I think he said that he has some ideas about who did it, but he didn't name anyone in particular. Did he mention what kind of ideas he had in mind, Bob? Continued his questioning. He doesn't tell me everything, Nancy blurted out. Now, please, I've got to go back to work. Nancy, I'm sorry that I upset you. He got up from the booth when he saw she was leaving. I'm just trying to get some more on this story. Well, you'll have to get it from someone else. That's all I know. Nancy left the booth and walked back into the kitchen. As Bob left the restaurant and started to walk back toward town, he knew that Nancy was holding back something. He was right. Sam had probably let something slip and decided that train is really just going to town here. Sam had probably let something slip and decided that he had better gain her confidence rather than have her spread whatever he had told her all over town. He had come to the corner of Main and Church Street. He looked to his right. 2 blocks over was the Worthington mansion. He decided that he had to talk to Sarah. I'm coming, I'm coming, Sarah called out as he rang the rear doorbell. Yes, what is it you want? Sarah was surprised to see Bob standing on the back steps. She had never met him and had no idea who he was. Damn, train just sounded like it slammed on its brakes. I'm Bob Klein from The Observer. I wonder if I could talk to you. From The Observer? You mean you're a reporter? Yes, I'm covering the abductions in Hines Park. Sarah got a sudden chill. What did he know about the killings? Did he know that her Carl was involved? What brought him to the mansion? Had someone finally discovered something that would incriminate Carl? What has that got to do with me? Well, miss, it's Warren, she answered his question. Sarah Warren. I'm the housekeeper here. My husband Carl is the gardener. I found out that Chief Guthrie was asking about the Worthington mansion. I wondered what he asked you when he came over. Oh, that, Sarah tried to remain calm. Chief Guthrie wanted to ask Master Pete where he got his chloroform. He wasn't home, so I told him that was all. You mean that he never asked about the mansion or wanted to look around? No, sir, Sarah lied. That was all he wanted to know. Is Pete home now? I'd like to talk to him. He's in the embalming room with a client. He can't be disturbed. Bob was mad. He knew she was lying and trying to withhold something. He was about to press her further on the issue, but decided against it. Tell Pete I was here. I'll stop by the restaurant tomorrow and talk to him. Chief Guthrie, please. As soon as Bob had left, Sarah decided that Sam had better know what was going on. Chief Guthrie speaking. Oh, Chief Guthrie, it's Sarah. Why, Sarah? Sam heard the distress in her voice. What's wrong? That reporter was here asking all sorts of questions about you. What kind of questions did he ask, Sarah? He wanted to know why you was here. What did you tell him? I told him you were asking about where Master Pete got his chloroform. Good thinking, Sarah. Now, don't you worry. I'll have a talk with him and try and steer him in another direction. In the meantime, keep an eye on Pete. As soon as he has Carl leave the van in the park, that's our signal that he's going to get another girl. I asked Tony to keep an eye open too. Between the two of you, we should be able to get the jump on him and try and stop him before this thing happens again. Sam sat in his chair after he had hung up the phones after talking to Sarah. He was mad and also very worried. This was the second call he had today concerning Bob Klein. Nancy had called him earlier. She was very upset. She had told him that she was sure Klein knew that she was lying. Sam was stymied. He didn't know what his next move was going to be. He couldn't force Pete to make a move. The only alternative Sam figured he had was to wait. In the meantime, this asshole Klein was snooping around, getting closer and closer to the truth. There was no sense in trying to hand him some phony story just to try and get him off track. He was too smart for that. He would see right through Sam's scheme and only become more suspicious. No, the only thing that he could hope for was that phone call from either Carl or Tony, letting him know that the van was in the park and that Pete was ready for another victim. Sam looked at the calendar on his desk. It was a Friday. Maybe we'll luck out, he thought. Maybe tonight might be the night. After Bob Klein had left the Worthington mansion, he walked the 4 short blocks to the Observer building. He walked through the busy front office to a small office at the rear of the room that had been assigned to him. He went to a filing cabinet and pulled out a yellow manila envelope. On the cover was written, "The Hines Park Killings." He opened the envelope and laid some papers on his desk. He sat in the swivel chair going over the contents of the envelope. What was he trying to do? What he was trying to do was somehow connect the Worthington mansion and Pete Worthington to the killings. He went through all the police reports, read all the clues that had been found in the killings, but found not one item that could link Pete with the killings. Bob put the papers back in the large envelope and threw the envelope disgustedly on his desk. Damn it, he swore to himself. There had to be a connection, or else why would Sam be interested? He found it hard to believe that Sam could suspect Pete. It didn't make any sense. Pete was the most easygoing guy he had ever known. Evern? It says Evern. Evern known. These Hyde Park killings were done by a madman, a psycho, not a meek Casper milk toast like Pete. As he was thinking about Pete, Dr. Schwartz's words echoed in his brain. Something triggered this man's personality. Something caused him to act irrationally. It is my opinion. It was caused by a great emotional shock. Yeah, that's it, Bob said out loud in his office. Whoever is doing these killings suffered some great loss. Apparently, according to Dr. Schwartz, this affected his mind to the extent that he was no longer himself, but another personality altogether. Bob had an idea. He got up from his desk and walked into the editorial room. Gert, do we have anything on the Worthington family? What do you need, Bob? A cute redhead sitting at a cluttered desk asked. Well, Bob sat on the edge of her desk. Has anything happened to the family recently? Something that we may have printed in the paper? Boy, you sure have a short memory, Gert said, giving him a big smile. Why, what do you mean? Bob had a puzzled look on his face. Don't you remember about 4 months ago? That old bit that you didn't want to write and stuck me with? Yeah, what of it? That's the old bit for Ginny Worthington. She died in late March. Yeah, now I remember. Bob's face lit up. Thanks, Gert. I think you may have helped me get a raise. Bob walked to a large filing cabinet at the rear of the large room. He pulled open the file marked obit. Since the only funeral home in town was the Worthington Funeral Home, all of the local deaths and funerals were reported in the Observer. He took the whole file and went back to his office. He checked all the funerals that had taken place from the Worthington Funeral Home since late March. He found that there had been 8. He went back to the first of the year and discovered that, on the average, Pete had a funeral approximately every 2 weeks. That coincided with the 8 he had since Ginny's death. Nothing out of the ordinary there. As Bob was putting the folder back in the filing cabinet, he suddenly remembered something unusual. The Observer office was located on Main Street, only 4 blocks from the funeral home. Since the route that the funerals took was right past the office help would sometimes comment and kid about someone going for their last ride. Bob, as well as Gert and a few copy boys, had noticed that in the last few funerals there was no entourage, just the hearse. Bob remembered George, one of the copy boys, saying he couldn't have had many friends. No one came to the funeral. Bob walked over to where Gert was typing up a story. Gert, I hate to bother you, but do you remember when we were kidding about all those funerals where there was only the hearse and no entourage? Yeah, I remember, Gert interrupted her typing to answer him. We never could figure out why. About how many funerals do you figure there were? I mean, the ones with the hearse alone. Oh, I'd guess over a 4-month period we noticed about 4, maybe 5. Why do you ask? Gertie, my girl, Bob smiled. I can't say for sure right now, but if I'm right, I think we may have caught our Gertie, my girl, Bob smiled. I can't say for sure right now, but if I'm right, I think we may have caught our Hines Park killer. I can't say it. Hines Park killer. Bob sat in his office. He took a sip of the coffee he had gotten from the machine. The whole mystery was suddenly clear to him. He had no proof, but everything pointed to Pete. Everything tied in. He had known about Pete's reliance on his sister. He knew that every move that he made was dictated by her. When she died in March, something happened to his mind. He turned into a killer. He didn't know why he was killing the girls, but at the moment, that was immaterial. The 5 funerals with only the hearse coincided with the 5 killings in the park. He was killing the girls and then having a mock funeral. A perfect way to dispose of the bodies. No one would suspect. When Bob had gone over the case histories of the killings, he noticed, as did Sam, that the killings took place approximately every 6 weeks. It had been 6 weeks since the last killing, but he remembered that the last time he had seen the hearse go by the office with the mock funeral had been only about 10 days ago. That meant if he had no body, and apparently for some reason he had to have the body, he would have to go out and kill again. The killings, he remembered, took place usually on the weekends, some on Friday and the others on Saturday. Up until now, there had been no abductions on a Sunday. Today was Friday. Since Pete had buried his last victim, there was a good possibility that he would try again this weekend. The thing to do was to call Sam and tell him what he had learned. Nah, why should he? Sam must know as much as I do. Why should I tell him? If he played his cards right, he could get an exclusive on this thing. He knew that Sam would have the park heavily patrolled this weekend, and he was sure that Sam had a pretty good idea which spot that Pete would pick. If he nosed around, he was sure that he could find out where they expected him to strike next. Next. Alright, how many frickin' pages are left? 38. Let's go to 175, so 37 pages left. How many pages are in this chapter? How come every frickin' chapter is 7 or 8 pages long? This guy's got a mania for 7 or 8 pages. Alright, we'll go one more chapter. Chapter 16. I think. Chapter 16. Carl, would you finish up here? I'm going up to Ginny's room. They had just finished the embalming process on a woman in her mid-30s. She had died after a long bout with leukemia. She was a woman about 5 feet 2 in height, about 125 pounds. The ravages of the disease had taken their toll on her features. She had been a woman with a weight problem until the past few weeks, when the cancer in her blood attacked her body, leaving her with an excess of skin that hung from her neck and arms in folds. Her face was deeply wrinkled. She required much work before Pete would consider her presentable to her family and friends. Pete had been in one of his moods. Carl feared that he may be thinking of killing another girl. When he asked Carl to finish the cosmetic work on the body and went up to Ginny's room, he was sure that Pete had only one thought in mind: get another girl. Up until now, he had not mentioned positioning the van in the park. Carl knew that until he had asked him to do that, Pete was still unsure about his next move. After Carl sewed up the small incision in the woman's neck, he removed the cosmetic kit from the instrument cabinet. Using a base cream, he slowly blended the sweet-smelling substance into her wrinkled skin. Within moments, the wrinkles were gone, and the woman appeared to have lost 10 years in age. With a special body powder, he removed the deep circles under her eyes. After mixing and blending the body cream to the right consistency, he covered up the incision in her neck. He applied the cream on the remainder of her neck, her shoulders, and over her breasts. This last application was not done in a routine makeup job. The makeup usually ended at the shoulders. In extreme cases, makeup was applied to the hands because these were the only parts of the body that were exposed to view. In the 3 years that Carl had been assisting Pete with the embalming process, he had never been allowed to apply the body makeup. Pete was very meticulous about how a body looked at it as it lay in the casket. He felt that it was the responsibility of the undertaker to display the deceased in as much a lifelike state as it was possible. He felt that Carl didn't have the training needed to do a proper job. Carl was therefore relegated to helping Pete with the various instruments needed in the embalming process and operating the embalming machine. Ever since Ginny's death, however, he changed his mind. He no longer had any interest in how a body looked as it lay in the casket. When the incision was made and the maldehyde fluid had filled the body cavities, he let Carl do the cosmetic work. At first, Carl was appalled at the idea of touching a body. After the first few bodies, however, he started to enjoy the work, especially the female corpses. Carl's sex life with Sarah had ended years ago. Oh, Jesus Christ. He still loved her very much, but the thought of having sex no longer entered his mind. Lately, however, as he stared at a body of a nude woman, he was somehow aroused. Every time they would have a woman corpse and Pete asked him to work on the body, he would get an erection. He would fantasize how it would be to have sex with the nude body lying on the cold stainless steel embalming table. The last body had been the worst. It was a young girl in her early 20s. She had a fantastic body. She died quite suddenly with a blood clot to her brain. As she lay on the embalming table, she looked like she was sleeping. She had full breasts, a small waist, and rounded hips. When Pete asked Carl to do the cosmetic work on the body, Carl was beside himself with passion. He applied the makeup not only to her face and neck, but to her entire body. As he ran his hands with the creamy mixture over her breast, he got a huge erection. Oh my God. Oh, I can't read it. His penis begged to be released from its prison. Overcome with passion, he zipped open his fly and had his organ in his hand. He was just about to lay on the cold corpse on the embalming table when Pete walked into the room and surprised him. Pete had been drinking and was quite drunk. He made a joke about Carl getting it on with a corpse and commented on the size of Carl's penis. He had walked over to the corpse, checked the makeup job, and told Carl to dress the body. Needless to say, Carl was very embarrassed by the incident. Because Pete was drunk, however, nothing more was said about it. Now, as Carl looked down at the woman that he had made up to appear in her early 20s, he was once again overcome by passion. He reached with one hand and started massaging her large, flabby breast. He cupped the loose flesh in his hand, forcing the nipple to be erect. He leaned down and kissed the nipple tenderly. His hand then moved down to her pubic area. And he moved aside the pubic hair, and with his index finger he probed her opening. Lowering his head, he started kissing the cold flesh until he reached the black hair. He stood up and walked to the foot of the table. Please don't do it, Carl. He looked down at the appealing body in front of him. With both hands, he spread her legs. He could see the pinkness of her as her lips were exposed to him. Oh my God. His body trembling with the passion that consumed it, he lay on top of the cold corpse. Carl was standing by the corpse applying makeup to her face when Pete opened the door that led to the secret staircase and entered the embalming room. He walked over to where Carl was standing. Carl, I just can't stand it. I was up in her room and she wasn't there. I have to have her there, Carl. Don't you understand? Pete's eyes were red from the tears he had shed. Carl looked at the grief-stricken boy and said compassionately, "That's all right, Pete. I understand. I understand." Pete looked at Carl, almost unable to believe what he had said. "You mean that you agree with me? You mean that it's all right to get another one to help Ginny?" "Yes, Pete. I can't bear to see you this way." "We'll get another one more, and that's the end of it. Do you understand?" Pete was almost overcome by the fact that Carl was going to allow him to get another girl. "Yes, Carl. This will be the last, I promise you. Get the car ready and I'll meet you outside. I have to tell Sarah that we're going out." As soon as Pete left the embalming room, Carl went to the study and picked up the phone. "Chief Guthrie speaking. Chief, this is Carl. It's going to happen again," he said excitedly. "Hold on, Carl. Calm yourself. What's going to happen again? It's Pete. He wants me to put the van in the park. He wants another girl. Chief, I agreed with him. I told him that it was all right. I'm sorry. I hope that I did the right thing." "Carl, listen to me. You did exactly what I wanted you to do. We have to have him try and get another girl before we can trap him. Now, when do you think he'll make his try?" "If it's like the other times, he'll go out tonight." "Good man, Carl. Now you leave the rest up to me. We have enough time before it gets dark to set this thing up. Is Tony there?" "Yes, he's talking to Sarah. Before you leave to go to the park, tell him to give me a call. Understand?" "I understand, Chief. I better go now. He's waiting for me." "I'll tell Tony on the way out." Carl gave Tony the message and walked out to the Circle Drive where Pete was waiting for him in the black LTD. "I'll meet you at the usual spot," Carl said. He walked past the car to the garage where the van was parked. As soon as he hung up from talking to Carl, Sam called the restaurant and talked to Nancy. He told her that tonight could be the night that they could put his elaborate plan to work. She worked till 6 and promised to be at his office immediately after. He had just hung up the phone when Tony called. He told him what Carl had said and asked him if he still wanted to help out in the plan that he had. Tony agreed wholeheartedly and said that he would be over by 6. It was 6:15 when both Nancy and Tony walked through his office door. "Sit down, Nancy." "Here, Tony, I'll get you a chair." When they were all seated, Sam looked at the young couple in front of him. He was suddenly apprehensive about mentioning the plan that he had formed weeks ago. His feelings showed in the expression in his face. "What's wrong, Chief?" Tony broke the silence. You look worried." "To tell you the truth, I am. Now that the time has come to try and put my idea to work, I wonder if it's such a good idea, after all." "Well," Nancy said good-naturedly, "why don't you lay it on us, as they say, and we'll be the judge." Sam looked first at Nancy and then at Tony. "Okay, here it is in a nutshell. My idea is to use the both of you to trap Pete while he's at the park. Nancy, you will be the decoy. In the dark, I don't think he'll know you. What I had in mind was this: if he follows his usual MO, his next spot will be Merriman Hollow. It's probably the most secluded of all the spots that he works out of, although they're all pretty well concealed. You and Tony will be partying down, as they say, at that spot. It would be better, Nancy, if you could get another couple to be there with you. The other girl will not be in danger. Just make sure that she doesn't look exactly like you. Around 9 o'clock, Nancy, you leave the rest of the group and you lay down by the row of bushes that's in front of the river. If he's there, he'll crawl through the bushes and put a cotton pad loaded with chloroform over your mouth." Nancy let out a gasp when Sam described what she would have to go through. "I know, Nancy," Sam said, as he saw the shocked look on her face. "As I said before, maybe it's not such a good idea after all." "Sam," Tony moved up to the edge of his chair, "I don't want to put a damper on your plan, but aren't you resorting to some pretty drastic measures in trying to stop Pete?" "Tony," Sam reached for his pipe and filled the large bowl. "I realize that I'm asking a lot of Nancy, but if the plan goes as I hoped it would, I have no doubt that we can trap Pete." For a few moments there was silence in the small office. Nancy and Tony watched as Sam lit his pipe. They watched the smoke rise in circles to the ceiling. "Sam," Nancy broke the deadly silence in the room, "tell us the rest of your plan, and then we'll decide if it's too dangerous." "What do you say, Tony?" "Go ahead, Sam, tell us the whole plan." "All right." Sam took the pipe out of his mouth and laid it down in a large ashtray on his desk. "To continue with my idea, when Pete puts the chloroform pad over your mouth, I don't expect you to wait until you're unconscious. As soon as you feel the pad over your nose and mouth, hold your breath. Wait about 15 seconds, then go limp." I don't think that's how it works. "He'll think that you're passed out. Let him take you to the van and act like you're dead to the world. The next step is, when he gets you into the embalming room, he'll take you and put you on the table. My guess is that he kills the girls on the table while they are still alive." "Oh no," Nancy cried. "I'm sorry, Chief. It's just that it's so gruesome." "I know, Nancy. I know. It is. It's horrible and shocking. That's why I want to stop this thing. Let me go on. He will think that you got passed out on the table. My guess is that he will have to go and get some chemicals to do the embalming. He'll have to leave you alone for a few minutes. That's when you have to make your move. There is a door leading from the embalming room up the secret staircase to Ginny's room. I want you to run up those stairs as fast as you can. I'll be waiting for you. You'll put on the dressing gown that you wore before and sit at the dressing table and wait for him. I'm sure that when he finds you gone, he'll come up to Ginny's room looking for you." "But," Nancy interrupted Sam's plan, "my face won't be made up to look like Ginny's. He'll know who I am." "No, he won't, Nancy. When you get up to the room, you'll put on a mask." "You'll fucking see her in the car, dude." All right. No, he won't, Nancy. When you get up to the room, you'll put on a mask that I had Linda make up for me. It looks just like you looked the last time she made you up. When Pete gets to her room and sees you sitting at the dressing table, I want you to talk to him. Say something like, "Why are you keeping me like this? I want to rest. Please let me rest." Something like that. When he hears you talking to him, one of two things will happen. I'm sorry to tell you, not even Dr. Schwartz knows which it will be. Well, would you mind telling us what could happen? Tony sounded irritated by Sam's hypothesis. According to Dr. Schwartz, he will either snap out of the psychosis that he is in, or he will go into a deep shock. It's what they call a comatose state. We are naturally hoping that the shock of seeing someone whom he thinks is his sister will bring him out of the state that he is in. And that's it? That's your plan? Tony asked. Except for a few more details that I can fill you in on later. That's the plan. Tell you what, I could use a cup of coffee. I'll let you two talk it over and let you decide. I'll be back in a few minutes. Sam closed the office door behind him. He walked down the hall to the coffee machine. As he approached the switchboard, he saw Bob Klein leaning over the counter, talking to the officer on duty. "What do you want, Klein?" Sam asked, irritated by the presence of the reporter. "Oh, didn't you know? I've been assigned to the night beat. I'm just doing my duty, that's all." "Is that a fact? What's this bloodhound been asking you, Ron?" Sam asked the officer manning the switchboard. "Oh, he wanted to know how many men were going to patrol Hines Park tonight, that's all." "I thought we were all over that. I told you that I'm going to have all the men that I have available in the park on weekends." "Does that answer your question?" "Well, yes and no. You know as well as I that he has followed a pattern in all of his previous killings. Would you mind telling me where you think he'll be at tonight?" Sam had a sudden thought. If he told him that he was sure that Pete was going to be at Merriman Hollow tonight, he'd ruin the trap that he was hoping to spring. "All right, Klein. I guess that I can't keep you out of a public park. If I'm right, then he'll be at Levan Knoll tonight. Now I don't mind if you hang around. Just don't get in the way." "Wait a minute. I got a better idea. Ron, get Olinsky on the radio. Tell him to pick up Klein and take him along on his tour of duty." "Thanks, Chief. I really appreciate it. I'll keep my nose out of police business. All I want to do is be there when you nail this guy." Sam got his coffee and walked back to his office. At least he wouldn't have Klein to worry about tonight. If he puts his plan to work, he opened the door to his office, walked behind his desk, and sat down in his leather chair. He looked at the faces of the two young people sitting in front of him. If their expressions expressed their inner feelings, then his scheme was doomed. Oh, I thought that was the end of the chapter. I guess that there's no sense in asking what you two have decided. Your faces tell the whole story. I knew that the plan was far-fetched, but I figured with a little luck we could pull it off. Chief Guthrie, it's Tony, not me. He thinks it's too dangerous. What do you think, Nancy? Would you be willing to give it a try? Well, Chief, to tell you the truth, the idea scares the shit out of me. But if Tony will go along with it, I'll do it. I think I owe Pete that much. Tony, I guess it's up to you. What do you say? Are you willing to take a chance and stop Pete, or should I get someone else to help Nancy? When you put it that way, I guess I have no choice. I couldn't stand to have her in that park with some other guy, not knowing what was going on. Count me in. Why, Tony, Nancy said, surprised at what he had said. I didn't think you cared that much for me. Let's just say that if Pete wasn't in the picture, you couldn't get rid of me. All right, you two, enough of this romance. Let's get down to cases. There are a few items that I haven't told you about that could still change your mind about going through with this thing. All right, Sam, let's have all the grim details. Tony had a smile on his face as he spoke. Here it is, kids. There's no other way to tell ya except to lay it on the line. To pull this off, you're going to have to do some play acting. In every abduction so far, Pete was behind the bushes watching a bunch of kids, getting it on, as you say. In every case, the kids involved were either having sex out in the open or were walking around in the nude. And do you know what Pete was doing in the bushes while he was watching all of this? Nancy looked at Sam, puzzled by his question. No, what was he doing? To put it as plain as I can, he was jacking off into the bushes. Nancy let out a gasp and put her hand to her mouth. It seems, Sam went on, that before he can abduct these girls, he has to be aroused. He picks on girls that not only resemble his sister, but it seems that if he can get one who is having sex or waltzing around in the nude, he has no qualms about going after her. This is the trigger, so to speak, that sets him off. If I read you right, you want Nancy and me to make him think that we are partying down. That means that Nancy is going to have to expose herself to this jerk I used to call my best friend. Is that the picture? That's about it, Tony. The only difference is that Nancy doesn't have to go all the way. I just want her to give the impression that you're partying down. You can take a six pack to the park and you can pretend that you're smoking pot. As to the love making, well, I'll leave that to you two. Well, Nancy said, looking down at her hands, I guess I can wear my bikini, and sometime during the night I could slip it off. If it takes that to get him aroused enough to go after me, I guess I can do it. That's about it. Do either of you have any more questions? Yeah, Tony asked. How should I dress? Boy, Sam laughed. You sure have been away a long time. The guys that go to the park usually wear cutoffs and sneakers. I guess they'll have to buy a pair of Levi's and have Sarah cut them off. Don't worry, Tony. I think the city can foot the bill for a pair of Levi's. What time do you want Tony and me at the park? Nancy asked. I figured that if you get there about 8, it'll give you enough time to put on your act. If he is there tonight, he'll probably make his move around 9. When I see him go after Nancy, I assume that you want me not to try and stop him. Is that right? Tony got up from his chair as he spoke. That's the idea, Tony. I know that it's going to be hard to watch him take her, but if we don't let him get Nancy, the whole plan is useless. If that's all the questions you have, I think you better be on your way. It'll take you some time to get ready. I want to wish you lots of luck, and remember one thing, you're going to be watched every step of the way. I'll do everything possible to make it safe for you. I'll be waiting for you, Nancy, up in Ginny's room. After Tony and Nancy left his office, he had Ron at the switchboard place a call in for Olinsky. He told Ron to use a public phone and call him at his office. Sam had just gotten another cup of coffee and was about to take a sip when the phone rang on his desk. Chief Guthrie speaking. Chief, this is Olinsky. What's up? Ron asked me to give you a call. Yeah, Olinsky. How is your passenger doing? Is he asking a lot of questions? Yeah, you're not kidding. He's been putting me through the 3rd degree. I told him that he probably knows more about this case than I do, but it don't do no good. He still keeps on asking questions. Well, let him ask all the questions that he wants. I just want you to keep him away from Merriman Hollow. Any particular reason? The officer asked. Son of a bitch, Sam swore in the phone. Yes, Olinsky, there is. I'm hoping that our killer is going to show up at Merriman Hollow tonight, and I don't want that nosy son of a bitch around when we catch him. Is that clear? I got you, Chief. I'll just keep patrolling the park and stay away from Merriman Hollow. That's fine, Olinsky. You just do that. Sam looked at his watch. It was 7:45. He had to stop by Linda's house and pick up the mask that Nancy was going to use. He hoped that Pete made his move tonight. He didn't think that he could go through this a second night. He turned out the light in his office, locked the door, and walked out the side door to his car. As he stepped out into the night, he looked up at the sky. A full moon, a perfect night. Come on, Pete, do your thing tonight. He got in his car and drove off to pick up the mask. That crazy, crazy Pete. What the hell is my bookmark? It's the chooch again. All right, that's all. That's all for now, buddy.